Hey y'all. I uh I just realized that today is January 31st and um I started this channel to start to share my personal story of loss and tragedy and grief and um recovery and triumph and overcoming. Um and I really intended to share these stories yesterday, as it would have been 2 years ago yesterday that these things took place, but I'm here now, so here we go. So today is January 31st, 2019, and on one of my previous videos, I talked about how um, Lyle and I first crossed paths. For those of you who don't know, Lyle is my boyfriend who tragically passed away 5 months after I met him. Lyle and I met in the tall group, and like I said before, we met on January, or he posted on January 18th. I think I responded. And then he didn't actually reply until the 19th. And our first exchange was really shallow and just, it was internet stuff. It wasn't like, a monumental connection in the first exchange. Um, but on January the 30th, 2017, I remember waking up that morning, and it was literally first thing in the morning. It had to have been, I had to go back and look at the timestamp, but it had to have been like 5, 6 a.m. in the morning. And I go onto Facebook, as I normally might do, and I wake up in the morning, go online, and on my feed, I see, posts from all the groups and stuff that I'm in, including this tall person group. And there was a post asking group members to talk about or share their relationship status. Now, mind you, I had crossed paths with Lyle or seen his profile a couple weeks prior. And like I said, the first conversation was super shallow. So it was just like, eh. But I really liked his posts. I liked his pictures. I thought he was cute. I liked kind of what he seemingly stood for. But when I had gone to his page that day, I see pictures of him and another woman. And I wasn't sure, what his situation was. All I could see was pictures of him with someone, and they were very beautiful pictures. It just looked like he had somebody. So I didn't bother to pursue it any further. But on January 30th, someone had asked about relationship status, and he posted on that thread that he was single. So as soon as I saw this, it was like the record stopped. Like, wait, let me go back. So I saw that it said single. I immediately went back to his profile to look at those pictures again. Like, okay, maybe this is a cousin or a distant friend, or, clearly this is not his mate if he's saying he's single. So that's when I jumped in his inbox, as they say, slide in the DMs. And really, at first thought, it was like, oh, I was excited to hear that he was single, but it didn't really go much further than that. But I did reach out to him. I'll post those screenshots of the conversation on my Instagram. I'll have to figure out how to do that here. Um, if anybody knows how to tell me how to do that, please post it in the comments, shoot me a message, let me know. But for right now, I guess I'll just post it on Instagram, and you can go to my Instagram at Alami Bashir and check out those screenshots. But yeah, that kicked off the first sequence of our conversation, as you can see. And it was a very nice exchange. We exchanged dialogue, a few lines back and forth. And then it was like, hey, I remember saying to him, you know, um, I remember thinking as we were talking, like I thought he felt nice, he felt kind, it was a good exchange. But I just remember thinking, he told me he was in Baltimore, and I was like, oh, you're way on the other side of the world. And I just remember him saying, something about like the miles don't matter, like space. I mean, what did he say? Spirit is boundless. Um, there's something to that effect, that spirit knows no bounds. That's what he said. Spirit knows no bounds. Gosh. Um, and that statement still resonates with me today, even today. And I'll talk more about that later. But I remember him saying, Spirit knows no bound. And he was basically inviting me, to continue to talk to him and get to know him. So we decided that we'd have a phone conversation later that day. And so, I literally, we had a pleasant conversation. This was the first thing in the morning. It was a very nice exchange. But I still wasn't thinking much of it. I've been on the internet long enough, and unfortunately, I've dated on the internet long enough to know you can't get too excited about when you first meet somebody. There's, levels to it. You gotta have a phone conversation, then meet in person, and all these things. So it was a nice exchange. I'm like, okay, cool. I'll call him later. So I carry on about my day. I come home from work. I remember coming home from work, putting my stuff down. I was like, oh, let me call this guy. So even when I was going to call him, it was so not a big deal. And if I could tell you that in any more clear in certain terms, I promise you I would. But it was so not a big deal. It was just like, oh, let me call this random guy, whatever, whatever. Probably be disappointment, whatever. I'm thinking that in the back of my mind. But still, like, okay, let me call this guy. So I call him and I dialed the number. You guys, and he said hello, and I became speechless. Like, literally speechless. Like, he has a beautiful voice. He had a beautiful voice, like a radio voice. Like, if you could imagine, like, the Quiet Storm radio host, like, that was his voice. And I don't know what really it was in the moment. He said hello. I paused. I mean, I paused. I like just froze in my tracks. And the pause was so long that I had to pretend like I was coughing or choking on water or something just to account for the gap because it was noticeable. Immediately he struck me. Um, Maybe it was the sound and tone of his voice. Maybe my spirit recognized his. I'm still not exactly sure, but I knew in that moment something strange had happened that I couldn't explain. I mean, I was not in a mindset to be awestruck by this man until I heard his voice. And so we carry on and have a conversation, really beautiful, nice, just pleasant, casual conversation, really easy, just flowing, just really easy. And he was a stranger, clearly, but there was a level of comfort that I felt with him almost immediately. Um, and again, it showed through our first conversation. So we talked that first time, maybe 30, 40 minutes, I would guess. And then it was just like, oh, nice to talk to you. Let's agree to talk again. And and that's kind of where we left it. And after I got off the phone, I just remember thinking like, that was really pleasant. Like, that was really, really pleasant. Like, pleasant is a good word for it. It was very non-threatening. He didn't do too much. He didn't say too much. It was just all just kind of really easy and free flowing. And I knew for sure I wanted to talk to him again. And so I think maybe later that night, he sent me it was nice meeting you text or nice talking to you text. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then, so, oh, and in the course of our conversation, he's telling me about, he's starting in on this new business endeavor, which is like this pyramid scheme thing that, if you know Lyle, he was always doing like a little legit hustle, or legit fog, I don't know. But nonetheless, he had told me that the next day, the company that he was working for had like it was a big deal. I forget what it was. They were having some kind of milestone occasion worth celebrating. And I remember he told me in the conversation. So the next day, um, I had sent him a text telling him, I wish you and your company well, nice meeting you, yada, yada, yada. And, that kind of just kicked off the firestorm of constant communication from then that day forward, really. Um, I really wish that I could have captured our Skype records. I have my phone records, and they're crazy, of course, but my Skype records would have really told the story of our communication because that's how we talked was via video chat. I mean, we talked on the phone as well, but primarily via video chat. Um, and so, he and I, from that day forward, literally, and in a 24-hour day, we have to get off the phone to sleep, but we only allowed maybe 6, 7 hours for that. So, which means the other 18 hours of waking time, we were on the phone video chatting probably 10 hours a day. I mean, like, I know that sounds crazy. I know it sounds excessive. It probably is borderline obsessive, but um, that was our life. We could not get enough of each other. We could not get enough of each other. We were so enthralled with getting to know each other. And um, we were, yeah, it literally consumed us. Um, this is January 2017. You have to remember that we met. And we were long distance. He lived in Baltimore. I'm here in Sacramento, California. And it, for all intensive purposes, to think of falling in love with somebody who lived on the complete, utter opposite end of the country was just asinine to even think of entertaining, much less someone you've never physically met in person. And while we met on a Monday, um, by Friday we were exchanging I love yous. And we had never, ever met. And, to know me is to know I'm so not that impulsive girl, when it comes to love and relationship. And I am very selective and in my choosing of a partner. I'm selective to a fault in many cases. And here I am having met someone, talked to them on video chat a few times, and just, a few days later, I am expressing my love and relationship commitment to them. And as I used to tell him, I was like, I haven't even touched your pinky nail before. I haven't even seen you walk in person. It was just like, I know I don't know you. I know we don't know each other. But I know the level of connection that we have is unreal and unbelievable. Um, and so that was kind of the beginnings. Like I said, I'm gonna show the screenshots on my Instagram. Um, I got to tell this story little bits at a time. This is just that first day of conversation, but the second day, I'll save the second day as a video for another time. But yeah, that was the day we really made a connection. Was January 30th. That was the day that he saw me and I saw him. January 30th is a day that I will never forget because of that pause in the phone call. Because I'll never forget how he made my heart stop. Never. So you guys stay tuned. Follow me on Instagram at Alami Bashir. Again, I'm going to put up those screenshots in just a second. And we'll see if I can upload the voicemail that I left him as well. But it's been a wild ride, you guys. I feel I have to tell this story. He wants me to tell our story. He wanted me to tell our story to everyone and anyone who would listen when he was here. And I know he wants our story to be known now. So here we are, Lyle and Lami. This is me.